I'm Ed Ballison, Vice Provost for Interdisciplinary Studies. And as we usually do with the showcase, we're going to have some opening remarks and then some lightning talks from students. So let us begin. I'm going to invite Stelfanie Williams, our Vice President for Durham and Community Affairs, to come up and get us off to a great start. Stelfanie?
Good afternoon, everyone.
That's fine, that's fine.
It's just an honor to be here for today's showcase. As I walked around the room, I just feel so energized by the diverse range of projects, each aiming to strengthen communities here and around the world. Each of your innovative projects contributes to creating sustainable, thriving, and healthy communities. And I hope you all feel as proud as I do of the work that I've observed. Your efforts are not just for a grade, they really are about addressing the needs and priorities of our neighbors. Tackling issues like literacy, affordable housing, health equity, climate change, social and environmental justice, and to see that many of you partnered with local and global organizations on significant topics, such as promoting racial equity and housing stability right here in Durham, as I saw in some of the projects, harnessing the power of artificial intelligence to tackle climate change, and improving reading skills that support lifelong learning. You are turning your academic knowledge into action for the betterment of society. Being well informed on matters and partnering with leaders is important, and I see evidence of these on your projects. Through ethical and equitable collaboration, working alongside partners to identify and address pressing challenges, that is what it means to partner with purpose, a core tenet of Duke University's community engagement efforts. As Duke students, you are utilizing your education, passion, and ingenuity toward constructive change. And your work is not just about the present, it's about building a better future with communities. We celebrate your accomplishments. Thank you for your hard work, initiative, and unwavering dedication to making a positive impact. It is just wonderful to see these projects, the scholars that have come together to really help these efforts. And I'm excited to witness your progress in cultivating mutually beneficial relationships and showcasing the essence of Duke's collective efforts to enhance the world around us. Ed, you are a steadfast champion of this work, and I look forward to continuing to build upon this through Duke's new Center for Community Engagement and beyond. Congratulations to all of you for these great projects. I'm so excited to be here.
Thanks so much, Stelfanie. We all greatly appreciate your leadership of the Office of Durham and Community Affairs as we work to equitably partner with so many different organizations to improve community health, housing, and education through collaborative community engaged research. Last month, a large crowd gathered in this very room to celebrate the winners of Duke's Presidential Awards. 7 individuals and 4 teams received one of the highest honors for staff and faculty across the university and health system. I was delighted that Bass Connections was among these honorees, recognized for truly outstanding work in service to the university's mission. This year, there are 68 project teams and more than 800 participants in Bass Connections. None of this would be possible without the extraordinary contributions of faculty leaders, the partnership from Duke's 10 schools and 10 university-wide institutes and initiatives, 6 of which play a crucial role in leading the Bass Connections themes, and the Bass Connections team. I also want to recognize the many people who've supported this program over the past decade, from Ann and Bob Bass to Danny Moore and the Fortin Foundation, to Alex Geyer, who has joined us in support of the Brain and Society theme. To all of you here today and joining us by live stream, I'm so very grateful. Up next, we'll have lightning talks from 6 project teams to give you a sense of the incredible research that our students have undertaken this year. Without further ado, let me welcome to the stage Rohan Garanti, Joshua Lopez, and Callista Ringas. Please come up.
All right, hi everybody. Welcome to our presentation. My name is Rohan. I'm a part of the class of 2026, and I'm a chem major.
My name is Callista, and I'm a junior majoring in psychology.
My name is Joshua, and I'm a biochemistry major.
And there's a 4th person we'd like to introduce to you today. Her name is Lola. Lola is a really special girl, and she's part of a very diverse classroom in New York. Lola comes from an island that she left when she was very little, and she really wants to share these experiences with her classmates. The only problem? Lola left when she was so young, she doesn't have any memories of the island. We don't actually have time to read to you the Book of Lola, but it encapsulates many of the things that our project is about. From the disconnect that first-generation Americans often feel from their heritage, culture, and identity, but also the empowerment and the importance of connecting with one's roots. And if you were a part of our project, you would have the honor to read this book in Spanish. But what exactly is our program about?
The basic idea of our program is to combat the monolingual paradigm, which is the idea that one's identity and culture are viewed in relation to only one language at a time. Most American school systems focus on solely teaching in English and view bilingual students as if they are in a reading deficit in both English and Spanish. Our program combats this with an interactive reading program that reinforces each student as a multilingual speaker that views the world through a diverse linguistic lens at the same time. Many of the researchers on our team have a strong connection to a second language, whether it be Spanish, Greek, or even Telugu. And we noted on the first day that we came together how many of us felt uncomfortable using a second language in the classroom, and also how integral it was for us to connect back to our own culture. Our program ties together elements of language and culture through reading sessions in Spanish. We inspire a love and motivation for reading and empower each of our students to embrace biliteracy as a gift they should nourish. Because Spanish is inherently incorporated to the culture of each of the students in our program, we incorporate a cultural connection in each of our sessions. One of the ways we do this is by reading books that connect back to each of our students' heritage, such as reading a book about Dia de los Muertos with a student who has a Mexican family. We also include the parent in each of our sessions because they are integral to developing a love and appreciation for where the student came from.
So how does the program work? So we begin at recruitment. So where did we recruit at? We recruited at La Superior, which is a Latino supermarket in Durham. And who were we recruiting? We were recruiting Latino families with children between the ages 8 through 11. Once we recruited the families, they were randomly assigned to either a control group or a treatment group. In the control group, the family was given a box of books that was curated based on the child's interest and their culture. However, they were not assigned a Duke reading buddy to read the books with. In contrast, the treatment group was assigned a Duke reading buddy where each week the parent, the student, and the Duke reading buddy would read the book together. And so the main way we were measuring impact was through surveys. So we conducted a pre-survey before the sessions began and a post-survey. What were we measuring? We were measuring 3 main things: reading motivation, bilingual identity, as well as ethnic identity.
So during the 21 to 22 cycle of this program, we saw some really exciting results. First of all, 100% of parents who participated in the program and 84% of kids who participated in our program would recommend our program to other people to increase their Spanish literacy. Additionally, between the treatment and the control group, the treatment group actually reported an 18% higher increase in their affect, or their attitude towards their ethnic identity. We think there are a couple reasons that this phenomenon is at play. First of all, we really enforce weekly accountability by sitting down with these kids every week and reading to them in Spanish. But it's not just anyone reading to these kids. It's a mentor, someone who's older than them, but not that much older than them, someone they can connect to and feel safe with as they grow in the Spanish language. We also validate the use of the Spanish language that our kids use. That is to say, we don't encourage them to look at tests or anything like that as a way to validate the way they use the language. We encourage them to read, speak, and write in a way that's authentic to their self-expression. And finally, we try to make reading a family affair. We want reading to be a time where families incorporate their heritage and culture into the reading sessions and make it a sort of tradition, just like going to the store every weekend.
With that being said, we thought the best way to end our talk would be with one of the words from one of our child participants himself. Hey, reading in Spanish is actually kind of fun now. Thanks for listening.
Hi, I'm Chloe McGeehan, and I am a sophomore at Duke, and I'm majoring in economics and biology.
Hi, I'm Paula. I am doing my PhD in environmental policy, and I will go with the policy side of our research.
Hi, I'm Abby Walden, and I'm a sophomore studying environmental science. Our BAS team was studying the impacts of artisanal gold mining on humans and the environment. While most of the gold mining that happens in Ecuador is not entirely legal, it still provides a major source of income in rural areas. Mercury is used in this gold mining, and it is a neurotoxin that has both chronic and acute health impacts. While many of the miners are aware of this, and mercury is technically banned, it is still widely used, and it helps extract the gold from the sediment and the rock. It is heated up, and the mercury is released into the air or into the rivers as a waste product, and the miners are left with the gold. To address these complex issues of artisanal small-scale gold mining, our team took an interdisciplinary approach to the issue, looking to quantify mercury contamination, its health impacts, and look for policy solutions. On the environment side, in the Napo region of Ecuador, which is highlighted at the top of this map, we worked with the Federation of Indigenous Organizations of Napo to establish a baseline of health impacts and exposure in the area, of environmental impacts and exposure in the area. Mining has only been happening in this area for about 5 years, and so we noted low levels of mercury compared to similar studies in other Amazonian regions. On the other hand, in our other region, in Portobelo Zaruma, which begins in southern Ecuador and ends in Peru, we had high levels of mercury contamination that were above both the U.S. aquatic health thresholds and up to 4 times higher than the Peruvian standards for potable drinking water. This problem persisted even 150 kilometers downstream of where the mercury enters the rivers. This is very concerning, and the high levels in Puyango Tumbes are dangerous and make us worried for the health impacts, but this also is concerning for Napo, which is in its beginning stages of mining, but makes us very worried that as mining continues, the mercury will also increase there.
Instead of looking at rivers, the epidemiology subgroup looked at mercury levels in hair, urine, and blood from 60 households across 10 different communities along the Napo region to identify to what extent the newer mining in Napo was impacting human health. Children under the age of 6 were given a cognitive development survey in addition to the biological sampling to assess if there was a correlation between mercury levels and cognitive delay. We did not find a correlation with when looking at hair mercury levels. However, we have yet to look at blood and urine mercury levels. When looking at location, however, there was a more concerning correlation with locations closer to the mining site noted in darker red color, showing statistically significant increases in mercury levels for adults, or a tighter spread of elevated mercury levels in children, with the lines also noting what the US EPA and WHO know as highly exposed levels of mercury that put humans at risk for mercury-related diseases. And we still have much more data to analyze, but research emphasizes the current opportunity for preventative policy intervention to slow bioaccumulation trends in Napo.
So mercury is illegal. However, addressing its use in ASGM is challenging because this activity is highly informal, dispersed, accessibility to the territories is low, and it is often linked to armed conflict activities. So, what do we do? One policy solution that we are exploring is incentivizing formalization. So, what does formalization has to do with mercury? When minors become formal, they are eligible to access credit or other types of solutions to replace mercury or to improve mining practices. They might be even able to access better markets for their gold. However, these benefits are often not as clear, and the costs of formalization are high. So one can think that minors don't want to formalize because they don't want to pay taxes, or because it is too difficult, or because it is too costly. Indeed, formalizing could cost what a year tuition costs at Duke. However, some previous research have found that minors actually dislike informality, and they will be willing to formalize under certain conditions. So we are studying those conditions in Colombia and Ecuador. We are using economic experiments, and we are finding that there are social factors that are relevant, such as the ability for minors to associate or to negotiate with larger minors. Those are important parts of the puzzle. And that's all. Thank you.
Thank you.
And this one.
Hi everyone, my name is Anya and I'm a sophomore majoring in neuroscience with a minor in sociology.
And hi, my name is Jade Terry. I'm a second-year PhD student studying cognitive neuroscience. And for our Basque Connections project, we investigated trauma-informed practices in the judicial system. We collaborated with the North Carolina Administrative Office of the Courts to try to better understand trauma-informed care in juvenile courts. Our research focused on questions like, how do judges act in juvenile court? And what do kids think about their court experiences?
We'd like to begin by asking you all to imagine that the 100 figures behind us each represent one youth that's involved in the juvenile justice system. Now, take a look at this image again. This is how many of those youth have experienced trauma. 90%.
So trauma is the lasting emotional response that usually occurs after experiencing a distressing event. And we know that trauma can impact the brain. Specifically, it can lead to changes in the prefrontal cortex, the hippocampus, and the amygdala, regions that affect decision-making. And it's these types of changes that can make it more likely that a person will become involved in the criminal legal system. But there is something that we can do about this, because the brain is flexible and it can heal. And this is where trauma-informed care can help.
So trauma-informed care seeks to address trauma by improving safety and comfort through attention to policy, environment, and behavior modifications. And these approaches are called trauma-informed practices. Over the past 2 years, our research team has studied the implementation of trauma-informed care across the North Carolina court system. Here, we'll share a few findings from just 2 components of our research project. 1 are court observations, and 2 are youth outcome surveys.
So for our court observation component, we collected data on 201 hearings across 36 court visits, seeing 16 judges across 7 different counties. And the goal of these visits was to determine the extent to which these courts were trauma-informed. During our visits, we collected data on hearing, court policies, case outcomes, courtroom and courthouse environment, and most substantially judge behavior, which was our main focus.
So we rated over 30 judge behaviors on a scale from 0 to 3, with 0 meaning not trauma-informed and 3 meaning trauma-informed. We then sorted these judge practices into 6 categories, including communication, understanding and transparency, interactions with youth, interactions with family, decision-making, and finally, the bigger picture. Behind us, you can see an example of a practice from each category. Next, these were our findings. Judges were more trauma-informed when it came to practices related to communication and transparency. However, they were far less trauma-informed across all other categories, scoring below a 1 out of 3 on average. These findings highlight core domains where judges can increase their engagement with trauma-informed care.
And now for another phase of our study, the Youth Outcome Survey. Here, we asked 17 youth, 25 juvenile defenders, and 29 juvenile court counselors about youth's experience in court and the role of the judge in those experiences. Here's a couple of things that we learned. So on a 0 through 10 distress thermometer, youth reported more than moderate distress during their court experiences. And this was more distress than the court counselors and defenders reported that the youth were experiencing. Court counselors and defenders also shared with us the types of behaviors that judges exhibited that would positively and negatively affect the youth. For negative behaviors, one respondent shared that they had observed judges being dismissive, talking over the youth, berating them, and siding with the parents without even acknowledging their feelings. But on a more positive note, another respondent shared that they had observed judges closing kids' cases early for good behavior and clapping for the kids in court. And when we were observing, we saw these very instances of both positive and negative behaviors. And to us, this highlighted that the kids' experiences in court was largely dependent on the judge that they ended up seeing.
So we'd like to leave you with 3 main takeaways from our research. 1, we need to promote further education about the role of trauma in the court systems in order to 2, better empower judges to implement effective and equitable trauma-informed practices. And finally, 3, we need further research on the impact of trauma-informed practices on both court-involved youth and their families. Thank you all so much for listening, and thank you to Bass Connections for their support.
Hello, my name is Aria Seal, and I'm a sophomore studying public policy.
I'm Audrey. I'm a sophomore as well, studying public policy and journalism. We are with a team that looked into a property tax relief program, and today I'm going to begin by sharing a story from someone that we spoke to. Let's call her Melinda. For Melinda, an arts advocate in her early 60s, living in a historic home near downtown Durham, her ex-husband had always handled paying the property taxes. So when she received the bill after her divorce in 2019, the bill that was once $300 in 1999 was now a burdensome $4,000. At 20% of her income, she didn't know that she couldn't afford this. And when she got a warning from the county that they could foreclose on her home, she didn't know what she would do. This, unfortunately, reflects a common phenomenon for many homeowners across Durham who are experiencing increasing property taxes. In a recent appraisal in 2019, various neighborhoods across Durham saw massive hikes in their market value of their home. These neighborhoods in yellow saw a massive increase of up to 92%. These 2 neighborhood circles are Walltown and College Heights. A lot of the neighborhoods that saw these increases were Durham's historically black neighborhoods. In 2022, the Durham Social Services Department created a program that would aid homeowners like Melinda. The program applies to anyone who falls under 80% area median income and provides full tax relief for people who fall under 30% area median income. This program seeks to address gaps in the North Carolina state property tax relief programs that only apply for elderly or disabled homeowners. So the aims of our research project were to assess the effectiveness of this relief program and evaluate the impacts on people utilizing the program. Then we were to assess the design and implementation and build recommendations to bring back to Durham for improvements.
So, our project used semi-structured interviews to collect data. It was essential that we use qualitative research because we needed to gain a deeper insight on participants' behaviors and opinions on this complex societal issue, and quantitative data doesn't allow for that. Okay, so we conducted a total of 40 interviews, with the average age being around 59, and the majority of participants being Black or white and female. So, looking at project findings, the first finding was that the property tax relief program is both accessible and helpful. Despite some challenges participants may have faced, the overall sentiment was extremely positive, and people were grateful to be a part of this program. Second, communication is a challenge. These issues begin with the name, Low-Income Homeowner Relief Program. In one interview I conducted, a participant mentioned that they initially were deterred from the program because they didn't consider themselves low income, and they worried that other people may be missing out on this opportunity for the same reasons. Additionally, there were a lot of issues with communication during the application process. Many participants had extreme anxiety that they weren't going to be able to pay their taxes in time, and some even had to pay late fees because of this. Next, Durham life remains difficult. Despite the relief that this program may have offered, costs are still extremely high, and maintaining home ownership in Durham is a challenge. And lastly, participants want more from the government. Many of the people we talk to don't have the luxury to have time to contribute to positive changes in the government, but they also feel like nobody's doing anything to address challenges and changes that they believe need to be made, such as improving sidewalks, reducing crime, or traffic. So our project has implications in both research and policy. Our data is going to be compiled into a research paper that looks at how novel local programs like this can improve housing stability. And for policy, our analysis of data is already being used to inform testimony at the county commissioner hearings to both improve this program and support funding for the following years. And for the future, we hope our research will be able to help inform other cities on how to best support low-income homeowners. Thank you. And we would like to give...
Hi, we are tracking climate change using satellites and artificial intelligence. My name is Malini.
I'm Dara.
And I'm Kushagra.
How many of you have seen images like these before? Great. That means that you may have an understanding of how satellite imagery can be used to understand climate change. Over here, we have on the top deforestation over a 35-year period, and below we have a major flooding event. From images like these, we can extract information about the causes and consequences of climate change. We can then use this data to inform policy making and climate action strategies. The issue here is that climate change is moving incredibly fast, so the pace at which we can gather this information is of the utmost importance. Manually extracting this data is extremely time-consuming and takes a lot of human labor. So that is where we bring in AI. Previous research shows that AI can be used to classify a certain image into a given type. It basically looks at a picture, thinks about what it's looking at, and is able to then determine what type of land it is. This type of AI classification requires example images that have been previously labeled by a human through a manual process, and that takes a lot of time, as we mentioned before. So, as a result, we're really not able to use all of the satellite imagery that we have access to. We want to make better use of the satellite imagery that we have access to and be able to scale our solution to regions across the globe from where we may not necessarily have these example data pieces. Our research is about doing this by using AI models that can classify images without having seen examples of that type before.
So before talking about artificial intelligence, let's discuss human intelligence, like how we recognize unseen images. Actually, we will draw from our memory to find answers. For example, suppose we don't see the forest image before, we can still use our knowledge to answer these questions. Firstly, by viewing these images, we can know the images contain trees. On the other hand, we also take text into account, like parking lot is related to the cars and forest is related to the trees. In this case, we have both understanding from images and the text. By matching them up, like images contain trees and the forest is related to trees, then we can give our answers. Our method is insight by this. We use language image model and it's trained on a various data set, so our model could comprehensively understand both text and image as human. So it can make decisions as previous examples. This allows our models to use what it has learned to new tasks. Our experiments demonstrate this capability. Like we present our model with a lot of these examples images, and this is unseen. Then we see how well our model to classify those images, to see how well model to fix our issues.
What we observe is that throughout our experimentation, our model achieves around 78.2% accuracy, which is very impressive, because our model hasn't seen any example labeled images of satellite imagery. Just for some context, a random guess would have been right 5.2% of the time, and the best supervised models out there achieve 97.6%, but they require a lot of example labeled images of satellite imagery, which, as you notice, requires a lot of human effort and a lot of time. So our method shows a lot of promise. And our method shows a lot of promise because it's able to scale into different areas without having seen labels of those satellite imagery before. And it's able to recognize the causes and consequences of climate change within those images. This is super useful to scale up our efforts into different geographies and different image resolutions. For example, the geographies of France is very different from the geographies of Austria, for example. But our model can identify these and see the effects of climate change without having seen labeled examples of regions in France or Austria before. And this extends to different resolutions as well. We want to thank the entire Basque Nation staff, our team, our advisor, Dr. Malif and Dr. Bradbury, and you for attending. Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Casey Brown. I am a sophomore majoring in International Comparative Studies with minors in Inequality Studies and Spanish.
Hi all, my name is Rohan Gupta. I'm a senior studying chemistry and economics, and we're excited to talk a little bit about our project, which deals with community-informed policy to improve Latinx health outcomes in North Carolina.
Latinx communities comprise about 1 million people in North Carolina, which is about 11% of the population, and face unique language and cultural barriers when enrolling in health insurance. Roughly 1 in 3 Latinx individuals in North Carolina are uninsured, which is one of the highest rates of uninsurance in all of the United States, and underlies many of the health disparities among Latinx communities. Promotores de salud, or community health workers in English, are trusted sources of health information in Latinx communities and help to really facilitate the health insurance enrollment process. However, promotores de salud face challenges due to lack of capacity building and integration with the rest of the healthcare system. Throughout our research, we examine these barriers to health insurance enrollment, as well as gaps in current educational materials in order to propose policy solutions.
Our project operates under the FIEL and C umbrella, and as the acronym suggests, this initiative works to improve insurance enrollment outcomes in the Latino community, particularly through insurance enrollment programs through the Affordable Care Act and through Medicaid. We used an inductive analysis approach to analyze the focus group transcript data.
Here were some of those themes and ideas that arose through this coding process. We were surprised by the frequency in which we use the personal and community experiences tag. However, after our analysis, we realized that this really highlights the value of the anecdotes that came from these conversations with community health workers. Here we've laid out the 8 key themes that arose through our analysis, as well as some of the barriers and solutions that come with each of those. Notably, many of these themes are centered around increasing information flow to Latinx communities in a culturally cognizant manner.
We wanted to double click on 3 of these themes. The first one deals with community power and knowledge, and as Casey prefaced, it's really, really important that when people are making policy decisions, particularly in community health, to have the perspective of the individuals who are on the ground and actually experiencing the effects of these policies. So it's important to make sure that community health workers have a seat at the table when we are making community-informed policy. Next, we wanted to talk a little bit about language, particularly spoken language barriers that still exist in health insurance enrollment. Community health workers discussed the difficulty that individuals in the community, but also community health workers had in accessing Spanish language resources in the insurance enrollment process. This is particularly critical because as Medicaid expansion increases or begins to ramp up, it's important that people have the ability to attend enrollment initiatives in person and have the resources to communicate their needs through the process. Finally, community health workers communicated a profusion or a lack of understandable materials and also the importance of catering informational materials to a diverse set of literacy levels. And we find that these 3 particular barriers are addressable in the short term and
Future policy to sustain promotores de salud programs can focus on expanding training opportunities as well as building alternative payment models to address the cost barriers. Additionally, policy can work towards strategically integrating bilingual and bicultural promotores de salud in healthcare and research initiatives within Medicaid expansion in North Carolina. This will help to facilitate insurance enrollment in Latinx and other marginalized communities in the state. Finally, we want to emphasize that the lessons learned through our analysis can be applied to community health worker programs across the country so that we can continue to decrease rates of uninsurance in Latinx communities everywhere.
Finally, we wanted to end by thanking our team. Without them, this work wouldn't have been possible, and we really appreciate your time. Thanks so much.
As always, it's just such a great pleasure to hear teams share the key features of their research that they've undertaken during the past year. Let's have one more round of applause for our student presenters. Each year, Bass Connections recognizes faculty and students whose contributions stand out amid an incredibly impressive group of peers. And we're going to get to the awards in just a second, but first, I'd really just like to get a sense of who the people are in the room. If you're a Duke faculty member, please raise your hand. Fantastic. If you're a Duke undergraduate on a team, please raise your hand. If you're a Duke graduate or professional student on a team, can we hear from you? Other Duke students who are just learning about the program at any level? At least a few of you out there? Yes, fantastic. Staff members at Duke who are on a team. It takes all of us to make this program work, and it's just wonderful to see you all out to celebrate the work of everyone on the teams this year. So with that, let's get to the awardees. First, the Bass Connections Leadership Award. This award recognizes outstanding faculty and staff team members for their creativity, intellectual vision, and commitment to student mentoring. This year's winners are Nicole Schramm-Sipaida and Maria Tackett of the Mental Health and the Justice System in Durham County team. Congratulations. So I think we're just gonna recognize you and then. The Bass Connections Award for Outstanding Mentorship recognizes graduate students and postdocs who serve in a leadership role on a project team and whose engagement with undergraduates has been exemplary. This year's recipients are Mia Buono of the Reproductive Healthcare Post-Row team and Jade Terry of the Trauma-Informed Courts team. This year's award for Best Team Poster goes to the Trauma-Informed Courts team. And finally, the award for Best Interactive Display is, and this one had to be tabulated during the showcase right now. We have a runner-up, Rosetta Wright's Musical Archive of Care. And the winner is Language, Music, and Dementia. One more thing, every year we award student grants, student research grants, and this year they have been received by 10 graduate students and 12 undergraduates who will pursue faculty-mentored research projects in the coming year. In keeping with the collaborative nature of the program, these awards include 5 team projects with multiple students who span schools and academic levels. The diverse range of topics include how climate change is impacting water quality and health outcomes in Madagascar, ways to address political polarization in North Carolina policymaking, and the development of new sensory tools for precision laser surgery. Let me leave you with a final plea. If you are participating on a current team, and I think that's a lot of people in this room, please complete your evaluation survey. We take the feedback collected through this process very seriously, and the program has gotten better from year to year because people tell us what's working and what isn't, and we listen. Congratulations once again to the more than 800 people who participated on Bass Connections teams this year. The showcase is going to continue until 6, so please continue talking to team members, asking questions, and learning about the research over the last 9 months. And if you received an award, please come up, we can take some pictures. Thanks so much.